Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, my goal for tonight is twofold. First off, I want to create a change of pace from my normal humorous storytelling style of speech delivery. So tonight I'm going to talk about something of more of a serious nature. The second thing is I want to focus on the use of the words in my speech tonight and not so much the storyline and the plot. The context of tonight's speech is funerals and eulogies. Now, as soon as I say funerals and eulogies, some of you may already be filled with sadness or melancholy or depression. For those of you that have spoken at a funeral, you may be conjuring up that memory of the fear and anxiety you had as you spoke in front of your family and friends for your departed loved one. Some polls say that the fear of death is only slightly worse in most people than public speaking. And some polls say the complete opposite. So speaking at a funeral, I figure, is sort of daily double. Okay, one joke. Either way, the fear of death itself, combined with standing in a pulpit just a few feet away from a death-filled coffin, has melted the soft tissues around the eyes of many a self-assured public speaker. And so that was what I faced in the spring of 1999 when my mother called to tell me that my grandfather, who we called Papa, had died at the age of 86. My mother was the oldest of three daughters. I was the oldest in my family. My daughter was the oldest grandchild, and I was the oldest grandchild, and my daughter was the oldest great-grandchild. Since I was the first of first, I decided it was my responsibility to speak at my grandfather's funeral. The day he died was a Saturday, which is a busy day for a family with three small children. In fact, that morning, my son, who was 10, played in a Little League baseball game at Buckhead Baseball. I came back from the game that afternoon to get the phone call from my mother. So as I was sitting in the family room thinking about what I might say at my grandfather's funeral, I realized I had never spoken at a funeral. I didn't know what to say at a funeral. I didn't know what kind of message I wanted to deliver at a funeral. I was sort of mindlessly watching a baseball game on TV, and my mind was sort of flitting around, not thinking of any one particular thing. And suddenly, everything just came right to me. I sat up from the couch, went over to the kitchen table, and started writing. And you might say it was a message from God. You might say it was a message from my grandfather. Whatever it was, my mind was suddenly flooded with words. So my fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests tonight, this is my main message and point for tonight. I realized I could vanquish my fears of speaking at the funeral by focusing on the words that described my grandfather from my memories. All I had to do was relax, close my eyes, and remember. I knew that if I wrote words that made me smile and chuckle and think of his warm personality, people in the congregation would get the same feeling. So my goal was to paint a word picture that would make the listeners realize that their life was better and more full for having known my grandfather than feeling lonely and empty without it. So this is what I said. Opening day at Buckhead Baseball was a real field of dreams. Hundreds of young children lined up in uniforms of red and teal and blue and green, all dreaming of home runs and victories. The sky was a perfect light blue, but thin, not that darker blue that you get in summer. So thin it seemed you could see the moon if you stared hard enough, even though it was almost midday. A soft, just barely warm wind puffed to remind us that summer was on its way, but still cool enough that I remembered it was still spring. The ping of the ball hitting a metal bat, the smack of the ball in a leather glove, the soft voice of a young catcher reminding his mates to go for two and to watch out for the steal. Hey, about a swing, came the cry from the pint-sized players in the dugout. The game began badly for the home team. Down 8-0 after the first inning. Our pitcher walked off the mound, bowing his head with his cap pulled way down over his red eyes. The manager met him at the first baseline with a pat and a hug. But he was a seasoned Little League coach. He knew that no league was big enough in Little League. And sure enough, he was correct. By the bottom of the last inning, the home team had narrowed the gap to a 10-9 deficit. 6 hours to the east, An 86-year-old man struggles to live, his heart more elastic than a piece of chewing gum that had been chewed for over an hour. He's fighting the good fight, but he is losing. His lungs are filled with fluid, and infection ravages inside. He reaches for a pair of eyeglasses that only he can see and carefully hands the invisible spectacles to his daughter. A simple but elegant man, he raised 3 daughters, provided for his wife and family, and he never met a stranger. He spent 45 years working in the same mill, most weeks working 6 days a week. He never got past the 6th grade, but he consumed the paper every day, and he still knew Biff Pokerova's batting average. He spent every day at the nursing home with Ruby, his bride of 50-plus years, quietly and patiently watching as her mind and memory clouded over. With grace and dignity, he held her hand and quieted her cries until she slipped away. His silent determination to live long enough to see Ruby home was stronger than any force of nature or God. The bases are loaded, there's 2 outs, and the count is 3-2. The home team's batter waggles his bat anxiously as he waits for the last pitch. Every parent is holding their breath. Swing! And a miss. The game is over. The batter, all 10 years old, drops his head as tears roll down his dusty face. The home team has failed. It is only a matter of time now. He is not aware of his surroundings, and the morphine drip has eliminated any possibilities of pain. His breath sounds become weaker and shallow, finally 6 short breaths, and there are no more. He won his game. He outlasted Ruby. The daughter hangs her head and touches his wrist, and tears tumble down her cheeks. She mourns his loss and cannot imagine not having him in her life anymore. But inside her heart, she knows that Sam and Ruby are a team once again in a place where the home team always wins. Thank you, Mr. President.